Hello, I am very pleased to start this new class, new course of study, Vedantic Insights, and I welcome you all. Um, there are 65 of you the last time I checked who had registered for this course, which is a wonderful number. And I'm sure that there are some others who have not yet registered who would also join us in due time. So look forward to really starting this new dialogue, new adventure of discussing the Vedantic Insights with you. In terms of prayers, I was thinking that we will start with our traditional Sahanavavatu, and then we will do the traditional Guru Vandanam, Shruti Smriti Purananam, and ending with Sadashiva Samarambham. And I hope you have copies of that, but I think I will send that to you also in the form of a text, so that you can, if you're not familiar with it, you can practice doing that. So in fact, actually, let's start doing that from today on. And if you are not familiar with it, then you can just listen. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavatyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Gukarastvandakaro Vai Rukarastvannivartakaha Andakara Nirodhitvat Gururitya Vidhiyate Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. So I was thinking, in addition to these standard verses, traditional verses that we just chanted, when we take up a book for a topic, like an Upanishad or Panchadashi, then we will chant an additional mantra or a shloka at the end of this. We'll add that to the end of this. So we will do that when we go to a text. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a few words about this course. I think I've sent you a video, and you probably may have seen it. In case you haven't, let me just kind of give you a more detailed analysis of what this course I want this course to hopefully succeed to be. So for most part, the Vedantic teaching is pretty closely sticking to the texts, Vedantic texts that we have. And there's a lot of texts, as you know very well. In fact, the entire study of Vedanta consists of a thorough introduction to many different texts over quite a long time, because even though the truths about Vedanta, truths about ourselves, is quite simple and can be stated in any one of these shlokas, but our mind being what it is, it requires more convincing and more arguments and more aspects of looking at it. And so therefore the various texts are provided for the variety of different minds that are engaged in the study. And so we have a very rich set of texts which of course stem from the Upanishads, which form the very end of the Vedas, Jnana-kanda. And then we have Shruti, that is Shruti. Then we have Smritis like Manu Smriti and the Bhagavad Gita being the two most famous ones. And we have about 5 or 6 other layers of texts that are available. So most of the teaching sticks to the texts. Then in terms of the second stage of understanding those visions that are given in the texts, then we have a secondary set of texts called Prakarana Grantha. And the Prakarana Grantha essentially are taken to focus on particular aspects of Vedanta by keeping a shishya, by keeping a student in mind, whether the student is introductory, is it experienced, does it know languages, how much has it studied, he or she has studied. All of those kinds of things are there in order to define what a Prakarana Grantha does. But in any case, not only the Prakarana Granthas, but many other commentaries now resort to following certain concepts and insights rather than strictly the text itself. If you look at the one that we studied recently in after Mandukya Upanishad, Gaudapada Vartika. The Gaudapada Vartika is also a compendium of insights that are of course closely associated with Mandukya, but goes actually beyond that. It's an independent work which partially expands Mandukya Upanishad, but as you know, for those of you that took the classes, we have 4 different Vartikas that exhaustively talk about the ways of looking at yourself that are not given even in the Upanishad. So in that manner, what I'm saying is that the Vartika is also a concept and an insight-based book, not just following a text. So that happens both in many cases. So in terms of Prakarana Granthas, as we know, Panchadashi is a good example, Dakshinamurti Stotram, Sadhana Panchakam, Viveka Chudamani, Naishkarmya Siddhi, Tattva Bodha, Atma Bodha, etc., etc. We have a very rich set of books that follow concepts and insights, not a particular text. They are always aligned to texts. They are not going against the Vedantic texts. But their focus is on insights and concepts and ideas, not on strictly following the sequence of the text. Now, in that sense, I would say that we will add another way of looking at it. When we say we, you and I together, because it's a live class. See, Panchadashi and others are meant really for studying a text. But in the case of a live class, which this is, there the emphasis on insights and concepts can take even a new meaning. So that meaning has to do with the experience of the teacher and the ability to communicate specific aspects of the insights in greater depth than the books can provide. So we have that advantage that you have come together with me for this live set of classes, And so we can take this emphasis on insights in a new direction, a new dimension, if you may, which is going beyond the books per se. And here you will rely on my own life's experiences in terms of how these insights have benefited me. And so my ability to authenticate that and to be able to explain that to you will be the new dimension that we are going to explore. And possibly if we do that, then the insights can make a fairly significant change in our outlook, our lives, our experiences, as it did for me. You can ask, did it really do it for you? You know, we talk about Vedantic insights for transformation of one's life. You can probably ask, did it transform your life? And you know, the answer to that for me will be, I think so. How do I think so? What do I mean by that? So we have talked about this elsewhere also, that as we know, there is the aphorism that we use in the Varsha Vidya Gurukulam, Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitramiha vidyate. So the meaning of that is that life's experiences, if taken in the right way, can be an extremely wonderful teaching tool. So that from your experiences on what to do, some experiences on what not to do. So for example, we always praise our parents, oh, they were so wonderful and they taught us so many things. They sacrificed their time and money for today. So we have a lot of praise for them. But I'm sure all of us would agree, or maybe I hope some of you would agree, that there were also some defects in the parents. And I think I mentioned that in one of the classes. I think it was in one of the classes. I think it was in Brahma Sutra. That my dad, as he was growing older, was continuously complaining about his lack of memory. Every day he would say, see, I can't remember anything. And he used to feel bad about it. And I really studied him. Even at that time I had no idea about Vedanta or anything. Just looking at him, and I said, what is it really doing for him? Nothing much. To complain about it publicly and to say it loudly isn't really helpful to him. And it certainly creates a sort of some sympathy in the minds of the people around him. So this was something which I thought I would correct. And if I ever grow old, which I am now at that age, I, by the way, turned 80 earlier this year, then, and my memory is also fading, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. But you know what? We learned from some of the shortcomings of our parents also. So anyway, all I'm saying is that if we follow the life's experiences, we can gain from both good and bad. And in the manner we improve ourselves and we become more equipped to deal with the various challenges that come to us and so on. Out of those, the Vedantic insights are unmatched. And so I was saying that earlier that if you were to ask me, has it really made any transformational difference to you? And I don't think I would be exaggerating to say yes. Why? Because for most of my life before I was introduced to Vedanta in 1973 by Swami Chinmayananji, I was struggling to improve myself. I was always been a stickler for how can I get better, how can I get better. And my my experiences and uh, my improvements, that's the word I was looking for, were marginal. I was generally happy with my life, some of them not. But in terms of my attitudes, my likes and dislikes, my hang-ups, my ability to ignore life's problems, there wasn't that much of a difference until I started studying Vedanta. And I'm sure you have some similar experiences. In fact, you tell me about it. I'm very pleased to get some very good emails from you. And it really delights me to learn that your experiences are very similar to mine. I was, of course, very fortunate to have a live teacher living with me for 2.5 years, Swami Dayanandji. And so I got a very close and a very clear understanding of Vedanta. Most of you probably have not had that experience, even though you've been studying with me on a weekly basis. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But the point is that I cannot believe what a difference this has made in my life. I really just sometimes think, he says, how could this have happened? Where have all those hang-ups gone? I didn't try to wash them away one by one. You find that the world doesn't captivate you anymore. You're by yourself happy, relatively happy. I'm not saying I'm a Jivan Mukta yet or a Brahmanishta, but I can see that happening. It's close. And it doesn't matter. I'm happy with what life has now given me. So yes, what I was saying was, to complete this, that if we pay attention to some of the experiences that have been very helpful to me, then I assure you that they will also make a big difference to you. So in another point of that I wanted to make was that these concepts and insights that I will talk about are many times quite familiar to you. Those of you that have been with me for the last several years, you will find there is a certain repetition for it as well. So what I would say is that I will try, and you should try, not to look upon that as just a repetition. The reason I'm saying that is this. I'm going to attempt to choose those insights that really had, and I'll give you one example a little bit later on today itself, those insights that had really a profound effect on me, not just a casual effect on me. And I hope that I will attempt to provide a certain profundity so that it also has a chance of having a profound effect on you. So if I mention something that you are familiar with in terms of teaching from me, please don't ignore it, because I will attempt to go into certain depth. So please respect the fact that I choose a topic or a concept or an idea or an insight because of the deep effect on me. This is what I will attempt to do. I may not always be successful, but I'll be looking for those kinds of things. And I will give you one example as I said later on today. Okay. I guess I was just making some notes to myself. I'm really quite fortunate and very happy that we have, many of you and I have established a certain bond. Bond in the sense that if I have presented some material in the past, it has reached you. You have appreciated it because you tell me that. When I started teaching, I wasn't sure of that. And I was not at all, sure that I would have an effect on your thinking as well. But every time you give me some feedback to say that it has, that really gladdens my heart that I'm going in the right direction. So that means a lot to me, really. And so I think we have established a certain bond. And so I'm really looking forward to this new format. And the format that I'm going to do will have the following aspects to it. One is that, probably departing from many of the other classes, this is going to be a much more direct talking to you from my heart. I would certainly bring the authenticity of the texts to support me. We never say anything. I never say anything. None of the acharyas say anything which does not have support of the Shruti, of the Shastra. Never. Absolutely no way. There will be some minor examples that may be unique here and there about losing my keys and this, that, or the other. It doesn't mean much. But the essence of that really is a parampara that comes from our teachers. So what that means to me is, what should mean to you also is, that you should have trust in the fact that I have been well schooled. So this is what is called Shrotriya Brahmanishta. Swami Dayanand used to say that, that Mundaka Upanishad verse that I quoted in the Brahma Sutra class the other day, Pariksha Lokan Karmachitan, etc., etc. Tad Vijnanartham Gurumeva Vigachet Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. So here Swami Dayanandji actually spent a lot of time on these two words, Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. So he made a binary chart of 0 and 1. So if you have two digits, 0 and 1, it has the following combinations. It has 4 different patterns. 1 1, 1 0, 0 1, and 0 0. Right? So we look at Shrotriyam and Brahmanishtam as 2 positive gunas. What does Shrotriyam and Brahmanishtam mean? Let's talk about that first. So Shrotriyam means one who has been well schooled in the Sampradaya, whose ways of arguing, of presenting logic, fitting the experiences into the way the Vedas look for it, it's not arbitrary, it follows the Sampradaya, the Parampara. This is what is called Shrotriyatvam. That it has been well schooled in the sense that you have attended a school of Vedanta for a considerable period of time. So you're not talking out of your own years, your own experiences, you're not exaggerating your way of thinking, your way of presenting. It all follows the traditional. This is called Shrotriyatvam. Brahmanishtam means that your vision is always in the presence of Brahman in your life. Whatever one does, so this is what is called a Jivan Mukta. So these are the 2 states that we are talking about. Shrotriyam Brahmanishta. So in the case of what Swami Dayanand used to say, that suppose we have a choice of going to someone who has these two qualities. It's very obvious that you don't want to go to anyone who is neither a Shrotriyam nor a Brahmanishta. 0, out. It's very clear that if possible, you should go to someone who is both a Shrotriya as well as a Brahmanishta. 1. That is the highest out of the 4. The real question is, if you have one but not the other, which one should it be? Shrotriya 1, Brahmanishta 0, or Shrotriya 0, Brahmanishta 1. 0, 1 or 1, 0. What one should you do? Think about it. We might think we should go to a Brahmanishta. Why? Because the person's life would exude it. Just in the presence of the person you find there is great peace, and it's a living example of a Jivan Mukta. Beautiful. The issue is we do not find many such people. They are around, but even if they are around, they are unavailable for you to teach. Oftentimes, when I was growing up in India, our families were very religious and very spiritual and so on. So they would also find Mahatmas and go and sit with them. They would my grandfather would invite Mahatmas to our home in Amritsar. I'm very fortunate to have that kind of a lineage. But the thing was, the Swami would come to your home for meals and would laugh a lot and bless you all and so on, and then go away. The question is, how does that affect you? What do you gain from that? The Swami Dayanand, to give you the final answer, was, if you have a choice of either Brahmanishta or Shrotriya, but not the other, not both, go to a Shrotriya, not to a Brahmanishta. Because the Shrotriya, who's been well schooled, is traveling in the same direction that you are and might help you, might be a couple of steps ahead of you, and has the same experiences as you do, and so is very sincere about becoming a Brahmanishta. But it's not there yet. That's okay. But as long as you learn from it, him or her, that is much preferable, because it's a joint journey in that sense. I'm giving you a lot of different details on that. So one it is that we will travel together, and I will try to give you as much of the Shrotriyatvam that I have in my life. I mean, if you were to ask me about my accomplishments in life, you know what it would be? I have been studying Vedanta for 57 years. 73 is what? 73 is 27, no, 73 to 27 plus 21, 48 years, sorry, not 57, 48 years. That's my accomplishment. And you should congratulate me that I haven't given up yet. This has been my life. This is my only accomplishment. Otherwise, I have not yet reached what I want to go, but I am very clear about what I want to go. Anyway, so this is one of the things, is that we will have a very direct dialogue, and I will heavily populate it with meditation, with guided meditation. And I hope to also, I've been promising this for a while, you must be getting tired of my saying it, that once in a while we would have Zoom sessions where our satsang will have more depth. I also get to see you and so on. I've been saying this for a long time. You must be saying, when is that going to happen? It's been a very busy period of my life and probably will be, but I'm hoping that I can become more adept at running the Zoom session. I'm going to, Raj Paripatidar has already bought the package for me, and he's sent me some training packages. I haven't had a chance to do that. One of these days we will do so. And probably in this class more than anything else because of the closeness of the thought that we will have. So this is one thing. Another one is that this class, this course will have no time boundaries. Some of you have actually written to me recently when I was asking you to be on this roster, and they say, how long will this be? The answer is, I don't know and I don't care. Why? Because this is not a text-based course, as we have had all along. Every time you have come up with a course, I give you some ideas about what text I'm going to use, how long it's going to be, like the one we did just recently, which was Purusha Suktam and Dakshinamurti Stotram, and so on and so forth. Those were fixed time limits. Here, this is going to be a Tuesday night live satsang. How long it's going to last? As long as I am alive and I'm active and I have something to contribute, if I'm not boring to you, and as long as you are also interested. And what I would say to that is, like taking a dip in the Ganga, which I gave this example, you can come and go if you want to. In fact, what I would request is that if you're not attending the class, don't even let me know. You've been very kind to me saying, I'm away for 2 weeks visiting some people on the East Coast or something. I won't be able to attend the class. Wonderful. In this class, don't do that. You attend it if you feel like it. Don't attend it. Don't feel like it. You can. The only thing would be that if some of the bulletins I send out to you, if you're completely gone from it, then let me know. I won't bother you. That's all. Otherwise, this course is going to go on and on and on. Hopefully. Then another thing, I hope more than in any other class, because we are going to really go into certain depths of it, I hope you give it complete attention. I'm sure that this is a request which is relevant for all the classes that you attend, but more so than anything else, please do not do multitasking. It would be very good if you have eaten your food ahead of time and the cell phone is off and you're not looking at your laptop, you are just listening. That's when you will get the best benefit out of this. So that's one of the things I would. So with that, there was another page. Note down certain ideas. Yeah. Why did I do that? I was going to give you an example of, as I mentioned before, an example of insight today itself. And hopefully I will have time to do that. But I thought that I will do one thing else. The question is, how are we going to select the topics? if we are not following a specific text, then how are you going to select these topics? Where are we going to get them from? So, a couple of things to talk about. One is, I will trust my instincts as I go along to see what topics would be of interest to you. And they have been for me. So I think that will just depend on what we choose. Is it completely random? No, not completely random. So I actually thought about this for the last 3 or 4 weeks while the class was being formed as to what texts I would, because I have to refer to some text. I'm not saying that we're not going to follow the text. All I'm saying is that the main focus will be on ideas and the text will support it. As opposed to the other way around, where the main focus is on mantras in a text and the ideas support it. See, that's just the reverse of it. And this is, by the way, nothing that is that unique. As I mentioned to you, that all the Prakarana Granthas use this one, and even my own Guru Swami Dayanandji, in the later part of his life, he did exactly this. He would take a 1-week course in Sailorsburg, and he will pick and choose maybe about 5 or 6 verses from any one text, and then just focus on it. Not try to complete the whole text. So this is not, this has been done. It can be done, and he did it very effectively. Something new for me, and I hope to do a good job of it. So what time will tell. So I had to look at the various texts as to where I will pick up most of my ideas from. Okay. So let me give you a few of these texts that were candidates for me to pick and choose the ideas from. Okay. One of them is a book called, in fact, I should have it at the very top. It's the other way around. This is a book called the Atma Puranam. It's a huge book and comes in 4 volumes, same size volume, 4 volumes of Atma Puranam. And this was written by Swami Shankarananda, not Adi Shankara but Shankarananda. And so Swami Shankarananda was there somewhere in the 13th or 14th century, and he was either the direct guru or the Parama Guru of Swami Vidyaranya of Panchadashi. Wonderful teacher. So well regarded. Swami Dayanand also used to say that he loved his Gita commentary. And I don't know what has happened to the book. I used to have a Gita commentary by Swami Shankarananda, and either I have lent it to someone and never got it back. I've lost it. It had a Hindi commentary, and this was like several years ago. I've not studied it. Anyway, he has written this thing called the Atma Purana. So he's just given the name Purana in the sense that just like you have Shiva Purana, you have Ganesha Purana, you have Vishnu Purana, he's called it the Atma Purana. And so what this is a compendium of many Upanishads. And he's provided an independent set of verses that go over the meaning of these Upanishads. So he starts with Aitareya Artha Prakashaha. Then, still going on. Kaushitika Sara Artha Prakashaha, page 255. I think there are only 2 Upanishads there. Then the other ones he has taken up, really all of the major ones. This took me a long time to study, and in fact this was suggested to me by Swami Viditatpananda ji about 15 years ago, and perhaps was of my first general review of all of the Upanishads. And it's very possible that I may dip into some aspects of it, otherwise it will take too long. I remember there's one definition of Narayana, Narasya Ayanam, and so on. 11 different examples of what the meaning of the Narayana is. It's there in this book, and I think I'll teach that one of these days in this course. So anyway, so this was one candidate. I decided this is a bit too detailed for our use. So this was one. Then there is a book that I studied with Swami Maheshananji's commentary called Anubhuti Prakasha. Beautiful book. And so this is also written by Swami Vidyaranya, who is the Shishya of Shankarananda. This also has a similar style to Atma Purana, where he has analyzed 20 Upanishads in 4 volumes. And it is not nearly as voluminous, and Swami Maheshananji has done a wonderful job of commenting on it. So this used to be my favorite about 7, 8 years ago. Studied this about 12, 15 years ago, and then several years later then I started going through Anubhuti Prakasha, and I was very fond of that, and I think I may pick up some ideas from that from time to time. But what happened was that about 4 years ago, I think somewhere, my time may not be, I discovered a new publication on Panchadashi by Swami Maheshananji. And I am telling you, this has blown away all other texts that I have really benefited from. I think the work by Swami Vidyaranya, augmented by the experiential commentaries by Swami Maheshananji, is just absolutely marvelous. And the interesting thing is, I was looking at it, the Panchadashi, I've been fortunate to study it in various ways. So Swami Dayananji used to take 1 or 2 chapters of that. Even in our PRC course, I think he took a couple of chapters of this. And then later on, when he would visit somewhere and for talks here, sometimes even staying in my home, he would take up a chapter here and there, especially the Nataka Deepa Prakaranam. He was very fond of. And so he would take that. Then I was just looking at it. I had a complete study independently. This is what happened. In the year 2001, in New Delhi, I found a Hindi commentary on this book, which was commented on by Swami Ramakrishna. So Ramakrishna Swami was the direct disciple of Vidyaranya in the 14th century. And he wrote a commentary on this in Sanskritam. And there was a Hindi translation of that I discovered in Motilal Banarsi Das in one of my visits in New Delhi in the year 2000 or 2001. And on my notes here, I don't do that anymore, but I used to put notes on. I said complete revision, end to end, ended on 2/9/2001. Then a quick revision, mostly on Hindi only, started at 3:01. Third chapter was taught by Swami Viditatpananda in June of 3. First chapter I started to teach in the year 2004. Revision started in February 28, 2007 during a trip to India. I must have gone through this several times. none of that equaled what I found as a treasure in the 4 volumes of Panchadashi that I got relatively recently, the last 3-4 years. Yeah, 5, 10, 17, 4 years ago. This has become, Swami Maheshananji's language just talks to me as though he's alive. His way of expressing, his examples, and I've given you a lot of points on that. Anyway, the reason I'm really saying all this is not to impress you or anything, but to say the following. I will pick up ideas from many different sources. In fact, one of the first sources that I'm going to spend some time on to talk about is Kena Upanishad. The Kena Upanishad has 4 chapters. I am just going to take the middle 2 chapters, and also not all the chapters, but just the ideas that I want to present. So that'll be one of my first ones that I will start with probably pretty soon. I have some other things to talk about from the first chapter of Panchadashi, but after that I want to go to Kena Upanishad. But the reason I'm saying is, I think you will find that in most cases, the content of this course will come from the Panchadashi as taught by Swami Maheshananji. We already did this on Thoughts on Happiness about a year back, on taking the 11th chapter. I will revise it. Even in the other ones, I've actually started looking into each chapter, chapter by chapter, and there are some wonderful things in all of the chapters. And we don't have to follow the whole thing, but you take the distilled version of certain concepts and you just focus on it. And I think that when we come to the Ananda, Brahmananda section of the 11 through 15 chapters, it has a great reference to the Upanishads, and the main focus is Ananda. Beautiful. So I'll spend a lot of time on that. So anyway, in summary, we have the freedom of picking and choosing the topics, but those topics will still be based on some fundamental concepts as given in the various shastras, and so on and so forth. Okay? Anyway, I think I'm pretty much done with giving you an idea of the sources of the information that I want to have. So now, in the next 10 minutes, let me fulfill my promise to you, which is to mention one of the, just as an example of, one of the concepts. Okay? I think probably, this is somewhat arbitrary. And so, but anyway, those are the thoughts that Ishvara gave me, and this is what I'm going to present to you. Other than the initial teaching of the presence of the Atma, the presence of Ishvara as our own reality, this was presented by Swami Chinmayananji in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita in June of 1973, and just blew me away. I said, oh my God. So in terms of an insight or an idea or a concept, I would say just the introduction to Vedanta was perhaps the most profound in my life. But this is such a big topic. It's not something that I can just talk about in one or two classes or anything like this. Anyway, the reason I'm mentioning that is that other than that initial revelation that really sort of changed the direction of my life, it really did. I just said, "Oh my goodness, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to know." Other than that, the example of the insight which has been the most influential in my life and the most enduring in my life and the most helpful in my life was given by Swami Dayanandji. Soon after I met him, I don't remember when, how long it took. Couldn't have been very long. And that was something I have talked to you about many times, and this is what I'm saying. This is nothing new for you, but I'm just giving you the emphasis. What changed my life and my thinking was the methods of gaining something. Either a gain of something that we don't have, or the gain of something that we have but don't know that we have it. You know, when that was explained by Swamiji, Swami Dayanandji, I think not only did it influence me so deeply at first, but looking back, that concept for me has really contributed to changing my life. So here's what I just want to present some aspect of that so that I can impress on you that may you also consider that to be a kingpin, a king fulcrum on which to base your thinking and your life, because it did for me. So this is what is called apraptasya prapti, an acquisition of the not yet acquired, or praptasya prapti, an acquisition of the already there. So once this was clear in my mind, once this was explained so that I could say, yes, this is praptasya prapti, the way it has helped me in my life is that just like you have found a treasure and it is very close to you, even though you have not yet enjoyed it. So the praptasya prapti means that it is something which you know you have. You have to be convinced about that. If you're not convinced about it, then please go back to the study. Do some more shravanam, more mananam. But in doing that, if you are fully convinced that this is the truth, my teacher is not putting me on, this is the truth, then it becomes extremely useful in your life. Recently, Swami Paramarthananda in his commentary, I think in one of the classes, I don't know which one it is, so he used this term, which I think is a very beautiful term, and very appropriate for this praptasya prapti. So the praptasya prapti means that an acquisition of the wealth that you already have. Use the word, claim it. Don't let it go waste. Claim it. Why are you not claiming it? There can be lots of reasons for it. If you are convinced that you have it, the usual example that is given, not a usual, but a very good example, that you are down and out and you don't have much money and life becomes so burdensome. Until you find out from a friend of yours or some relative or something that you actually have a lot of property that was given by your parents and they're there somewhere. You just have to look at it. Another example of that is that somebody comes to you and said, your distant aunt just died and she had no direct relatives, and you're the first relative she's just given $50 million to. So you have to claim it. It's a shock. You don't even understand. You're happy with 100,000, this, that, or the other. I was just reading today. I just happened to read this very quick article. It pointed out what is the average or the mean savings for people at the various ages of their life. You can look it up if you want to, but let me just tell you. Okay, this is Wall Street Journal, and they are very reputable. They don't tell you something which cannot be verified. I was shocked to find that in the US, the mean net worth of people between 65 and 74, which is the highest level out of any of the ages, the mean is $150,000. This is how much net worth they have. The average is a little higher. The average is 1.2 million because the people that have more than that have so much more than that that it skews the average. But if you look at the mean, which means half of the people have less than $150,000, half of the people have more than $150,000. Mean is $150,000. That's it. Anyway, so if you go to this, and this is the highest, by the way. If you look at the ages of much less, it goes from 10,000, 50,000, and then after 74 it diminishes again because people use their money. This is how little money people have to live by. So if such a person was given, $50 million, you know what will happen? They will be such a shock that they will have no idea what that money means, how their lives can be changed, how to utilize it, who to give it to, who not to give it to. The whole thing will be a complete mystery. And as a consequence, you can see that they may be just in such a state of shock that they don't do anything. They just keep it in the bank because they're not used to it. That's exactly what our situation is. And infinitely more important. Vedanta says, my God, do you know who you are? And Vedanta has the Shastra. I keep saying Vedanta, but let's say Shastra, the spiritual wisdom. The spiritual wisdom doesn't want to break the news so openly that you would be decapacitated. In fact, it is written in our Shastra that really what happens is that your eyes are so weak to look at the sun that you just shut it. This is such an enormous acquisition that we are incapable of understanding it. And yet we must do. We must have the courage to try to approach it, to try to understand, try to use it. When I was telling you that this praptasya praptihi as a concept, as an insight, was the most important in my life. And I know that. And how useful it has been and continues to be my support. Because, like everybody else, I've had lots of ups and downs in my life. Health-wise, family-wise, this, that or the other is very normal. And in many, many cases, as you are living through your life and so on, it really pains you. I wouldn't say sorrow, and I don't get sorrowful. Long time ago, never got sorrowful, and after Vedanta it never does. But it gives you upset feelings about physical pain, all those kinds of things. But since I understood praptasya prapti, I don't let any situation get the better of me. Never. I bring a smile in my mind. And I remember Ishvara. And I said, "You're a funny guy. I know you are there. And you seem to disappear from time to time. What an interesting situation." And do you know what? The situation dissolves. Sooner or later, dissolves. And my experience of myself as being independent endures. I claim the status. So I suggest to you, this is why I use this example, I suggest to you to understand praptasya praptihi as a fact of your life. Not as some kind of a concept, academic concept that you can explain to someone. No. Why is it that you don't claim it? Is it because you still don't believe the teachers? Maybe so. I don't know what else to do then. Because you are dismissing the very fundamental teaching. And perhaps if you study this in some book, this is what I was telling you about a live class. If you were reading a book or something, you may just look like it's interesting concept. Praptasya prapti. Okay, let's go to the next chapter. Let's see what else you do. It's not like that. Either you get it live, direct from the teachers, or you don't. And if you don't, then the rest of it will not make that much sense to you. You should know this, praptasya prapti, that our innate freedom is me. And my approach towards life is not to do anything to gain, but to know something that I've already have. This is a very fundamental fork in the road. So anyway, I was just thinking about it, that I said, let me start with one example. We keep talking about, we're going to give you Vedantic concept, Vedantic insight to transform your life. It looks like a lot of interesting words and so on. But this is an example that you should think about. And we're going to do this in many, many different ways. But I think that really out of all of the insights, the one that I urge you to understand, because if you're not utilizing it, it's really due to one of the, this all boils down to either viveka or vairagya. So, Swami Chinmayanand used to say this, that viveka and vairagya are the two wings of a bird. If either of the two wings is clipped, it cannot fly. There's no balance. This is our experience, a single wing. I don't think I've ever seen a single wing bird fly. It can walk on the ground. So either you don't understand this, you don't accept it. What is this praptasya prapti? What is he talking about? What innate freedom? This is lack of viveka, lack of study, lack of paying attention. You don't have an introduction to the Shastra properly, for whatever reason. Or you do know that, but you don't utilize it. You don't meaningfully utilize it. You complain that life is too much, and the normal thing is, Vedanta looks very interesting on a piece of paper, but my life doesn't follow it. I don't know how to live this. How to live this? Means that this is one of the greatest weapons, and you're not utilizing it. Calm your mind down and realize to let Ishvara come to your aid. Have a smile. This is vairagya. You're letting the small. It's like you have a tremendous weapon with you, and you're letting some people slap you around. Small things are slapping you around. And instead of really using the weapon and defeating these small things, you don't use it. Why? Well, I don't know. Okay, in the beginning you don't know, but then gain strength from it. Anyway, this is just one example of the insight. I just wanted to give you kind of like a sample of the type of things that we will be doing in a different manner in this class. And I hope you're up for it. And if not, then you can go to some other sources and so on. And I'll try to do that to the best of my ability on things that I am very convinced about. This is not theoretical for me. I won't present an insight to you until I have fair amount of clarity about this, conviction. So with that, let me close this first class and with a small prayer, and then we'll see you next week. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. I was supposed to warn you about freezing the frames that has been happening recently, and I forgot to do it. I hope it was okay, but for next time also, the advice given by Chandra and Raj were that I think we made some improvements in the setup, and we'll continue to work on it. In case it does freeze, then please stay with it and not go away, and we should be able to correct it. So anyway, I forgot to tell you that. All right, Vandana Agarwal, I mean just state the names of all the people that I see. Darshana Bhutta, Gauranga Krishnamurti, Shanti Kumar, Thandris, Arvind Taylor, Chandra Dulam, Hitesh Shah, T. Srinivasan, Andrea Graziosi and Ramanand, Lakshmi Kaushik, Subroto Bose, Raj Velpuri, Balamani, Ashish Mudgil, Maithili Ramakrishna, Satish Jalota, Ila Joshi, Virendra Singh, Zarina Kaji, Kalpana Dave, Bharat Dave, Natalya, Priyanka, Sudha Tomar, Surendra Bhargava, Madhava Das. This is a new name. I don't know. If you could please send me some information about yourself, Madhava. Suvarna and Bhaskar Banjara, Chris Narayan, Mary Penn, Ganeshan Krishnamurti, Subhash Jain, Sulekha Chaudhary, Sam Dillon, Sulochana Lulla, Shankar Narasimhan, the rest of them I think are comments repeated. Neelam Sethi, I may have missed somebody, but let me read any of your comments. Thank you, Balamaniji. Vandana says, I like the idea of an infinite class. Yeah, that's good, interesting. That's a good way to look at it. Infinite nature of this class. Maithili. Yeah, Surendra, you're right. Panchadashi is just, you've told me that you have actually studied the Hindi translations of it. You're very fortunate to know Hindi. Yeah, I think that the ideas of Panchadashi as brought out by Swami Maheshananji will be truly appreciated. I'm not sure that many people know it. I just happen to lock into it. It's a recent publication, only in the last 4 or 5 years. But doesn't matter whether it's popular or not. The jewels are there. And somehow this combination of Vidyaranya's teaching and Swami Maheshananji's explanation of that teaching is just out of this world. Just wonderful. Shankar Narasimha says, could you please repeat the title of the 4th book you mentioned? So the ones I mentioned were Atma Purana, Anubhuti Prakasha, and 2 versions of Panchadashi. I did not have a 4th book. So one was a smaller Panchadashi, which is the Hindi translation of Ramakrishna's commentary. Ramakrishna was the direct disciple of Vidyaranya, and he's written a commentary which is okay, but he's just sort of clarified certain points, but not considered to be a great book per se. And so other commentaries on Panchadashis are available in different languages that are excellent. And I think out of that, Swami Maheshananji's will really be recorded as one of the best in my opinion. Anyway, so those are the 4 books that I give. I was going to show you, and in fact I'm glad you mentioned that, I may spend the first detailed explanation of a certain couple of concepts from Kena Upanishad. And I believe that in fact, let me back up. You may not really get the texts of these very easily. Panchadashi, you should try to get it from someplace. Panchadashi you should get, because I'm going to use that quite a bit. Other books like Kena Upanishad, different Upanishads you may not have. So I will try to make a copy of a few pages. Like in the case of Kena Upanishad, I think there is about 16 or 18 pages of the 2 chapters that I will send you as a text, perhaps even as early as next week. So be on the lookout for that. If you happen to have Kena Upanishad or Bhagavad Gita, so much the better. Oh good, no freezing. Excellent. Very good. Thank you all for attending this first course, and I look forward to a lot of unfolding of ideas which will be helpful to all of us as we discuss them mutually. Thank you, and I look forward to teaching again. Om.